Hello, brothers and sisters. My name is Eddie Mendoza, and welcome to Pathways of Hope. There's something about, upbeat music that when I hear it, I instinctively tap my feet, shake my head, and before I know it, my body is swaying and I'm ready to dance the beat. I'll do this anywhere I hear upbeat music, whether I'm just walking into a store with pipe-in music or I hear a jeepney passing by with its loud music, or maybe even making the sign of the cross as I leave the church, which is playing an upbeat final song. Ang saya-saya. In today's gospel, from Luke chapter 7, verse 31-35, Jesus had strong words for the religious leaders of the day, the Pharisees, who were like people who refused to dance to the music. In this passage, Jesus comments on how the Pharisees sneered at him and at John the Baptist for how they preached the good news to all sorts of people. And the Pharisees wouldn't budge because they thought that they knew God's answers to life. They. And so these Pharisees, instead of embracing the good news message, they criticized John and Jesus on very shallow grounds, pointing to John's weird and eccentric fasting and clothing, and while they dismissed the messages of Jesus because he ate and drank with outcasts. And the Pharisees red tagged them, saying they were possessed by demons. But, Jesus dismissed these arrogant Pharisees as the pitiful ones because he said that the best way to judge whether their message made sense or not was not by the appearance of themselves as messengers, but to see how their message changed the lives and behavior of those who listened and believed their messages. Jesus said, "Wisdom is proved right by all her children." Today's gospel passage bears a message of instruction and a message of hope for us today. First of all, a message of instruction. There is a difference, brothers and sisters. There's a difference between discernment and judging. Discernment protects us from inappropriate biases or deceitful messages and influences and outright false teaching. Discernment. We need to be discerning and critical of the world and its influences because, we are prone to think only of our needs and our egos and to be indifferent to the needs of other neighbors. Yeah. And, anything that appeals to our selfish egos tends to get our attention. That's the human nature in us. So we need to be discerning. On the other hand, it's not wise to judge others and write them off just because they have ideas and behaviors that don't suit our sensitivities or our own biases, or because they behave and think differently from what we are accustomed to. People do things and express themselves in various ways, whether it's their praise and worship style, whether it's the manner in which they explain certain ideas, and whether it's what they try to make you appreciate and value that's not your type or not your taste, you know. But, brothers and sisters, let's always be open to God's purpose in bringing radical and different people into our circles. Let's not miss out on God's best just because our minds and hearts are comfortable where we are. Now, the message of hope. For those of us who feel that they have a good message to give, or see people going the wrong way but are indifferent to change and suggestions, and yet these people refuse to acknowledge the good news that we lovingly speak to them about Jesus, take heart. Take heart and don't lose hope. Keep proclaiming the good news even to cynical and deaf ears. It's not your fault. It's not your fault if they don't listen to you or they don't believe you and they refuse to change. It's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. Let them see by your behavior instead, let them see by your behavior and in your life that the good news has made a difference in your life. Remember, it's not your job to change and transform people. That's God's job. And believe me, He's good at it. Our task is simply to sow seeds, to shed the light, by our word and our deeds of love. And yes, it's a joyful experience, of course, when we see people responding positively to our message. And please do not be motivated by the number of likes on your Facebook page, because this is how the world measures success. Rather, let your reward come from the Lord who called you to break a sweat, to plow the hard ground. He called you not to get tired seeding seeds of hope to all whom God sends to you. And let your consolation rest purely in the joy of hearing God Himself say to you, "Well done, good and faithful servant." God bless us all.